Information Technology and General Services Committee will now come to order. We'll begin by announcing items 2, 3, and 4 on the regular agenda. We'll note and file those items unless any committee members have any particular questions. Okay. So items 2, 3, and 4 we'll note and file. And we'll go to regular item 1.
Item number 1, motion Rosendahl Hahn relative to the sale of municipal off-street parking lot number 654 at 1611 South Beloit Avenue, APN 4261-007900. On July 22nd, 2009, the Transportation Committee also considered this matter. Also referred to the Budget and Finance Committee.
Okay. Please.
Good afternoon, Nancy Bauer with LADOT.
Can you put the microphone a little closer to you?
Good afternoon, Nancy Bauer with LADOT.
Thank you.
Basically, this motion is to sell our city parking lot 654 as surplus property at fair market value for a mixed-use commercial project through a competitive bid process. The department supports the project. It will provide for replacement public parking within the mixed-use development following the request for proposals.
Okay. Any questions?
I mean, what was the source of funds that bought the lot initially?
Special Parking Revenue Fund?
And then is that where the funds are going to fund the purchase?
Yes, it will. It's a very small, underutilized surface lot. It's only 20 spaces.
But our expectation is the development is going to return those spaces to use?
Yes, the 20 space, part of the request for proposal will require that the 20 spaces will be replaced within the new mixed-use development.
Have we considered a ground lease as opposed to a sale?
That's something that we might consider. We work through with the council office as a possibility, but right now the idea was to sell the land at fair market value with the caveat with the provision of replacement parking.
You consider that because, we're again selling at a down market as opposed to that would allow us to maintain the rights to it and also get a stipend each month or something to see if we could work something as opposed to just getting rid of it?
We can work with the council office, yeah, CD11. I don't know if they're here, but...
Thank you.
Okay. Those are my questions. Anything else staff would like to add? No? Okay. All right. Seeing no more questions from the committee, and unless somebody filled out a card for regular item number 1, please come forward. All we see is special item number 1 cards. Anybody here for this item on the regular agenda, item number 1? Seeing and hearing none, public comment is now closed on that item. And with that, we'll adopt the motion as amended by the Transportation Committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that takes us to item number 5.
Item number 5, CAO report relative to proposed amendment number 11 to contract number C-105458 with Hess & Associates for programming services for software support for the payroll system replacement project.
Good afternoon. I am Rob Sandiford from the City Administrative Office. Before you is a contract amendment for the contract between the City and Hess & Associates for work on the payroll system known as PACER. The City began contracting with Hess & Associates in July 2000 at the time that the payroll system replacement project was initiated to replace the City's decades-old legacy payroll system, which was obsolete and difficult to modify and maintain. The PACER Steering Committee, chaired by the CAO, provides executive oversight for the project. The success and acceptance of PACER has resulted in requests for more automation and electronic workflows. During 2009 through 10, PACER-related work is expected to include retiring the remaining pieces of the legacy payroll system, providing electronic instead of paper W-2s, and completing the PACER interfaces with the new financial management system, FMS, which is targeted to go live in July 2010. At this time, this amendment was submitted to the, PACER Steering Committee, It was expected to be the 11th amendment. It is now, however, going to be the 12th amendment. Recently, the council and mayor approved funding for PACER and FMS programming services, and the contract revision incorporating that funding became Amendment 11. That amendment also transferred the contract from the city controller to the Information Technology Agency. We recommend approval of this 12th contract amendment. The total amount of the amendment is $935,000 for work performed during the period from August 1st, 2009 to July 31st, 2010. I am happy to answer any questions you may have, and representatives from ITA and the controller are also here.
Okay. So it's appropriate to correct the record and refer to this as amendment number 12?
Yes.
From here forward?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll do that, and we'll reflect that in the record. Now, what is the relationship with this contractor after July 31st, 2010, as we see it today?
Let me bring up ITA.
Or am I asking about amendment number 13 already?
Beverly Denver from ITA. I expect that in August 2010, it'll depend on what requirements the city has for development of new functionality on PACER, which is anticipated to be primarily in the area of personnel with position control and that type of functionality. So it will depend on demand
Okay.
for changes to PACER.
Okay, so we don't know the accurate answer to that question as far as exactly what the relationship would be, because that will be developed over the coming 12 months.
Correct.
And there would also be the expectation that there would be maintenance support on an ongoing basis, even if there was no
Change.
development going on, the contractor would be available, to help with the system as needed.
And what's that rate?
That has not been determined yet.
Okay. So we don't have an idea of what the regular rate of maintenance is on this project, even if we don't have any major requirements of them to change the project.
Well, I mean, that type of support is also being done now
Uh-huh.
as part of this whole
So what
project.
component of what's going on right now, what amount of funds are attributable to that basic support?
Right now, what we might call lifeline or production support effort is in the range of $200,000 during
Okay.
this fiscal year. In the new fiscal year, we would hope to be able to bring that down even lower.
Okay, thank you. That's basically what my question was. What kind of magnitude of dollars may we anticipate to need to support the system that is now being developed with including the 12th Amendment? Okay, so thank you. That's the information that I was looking for. Okay. Any questions?
Let me just ask, on number 11, what was the amount of money and what did we get for?
It was $100,000, which was transferred from FMS to assist in the effort of developing the integration with FMS, because it does have a significant impact on PACER.
Okay, so that's already happened through what, the financial status report, or was that a separate?
That has already been approved. Didn't go through that sorry.
It was a separate item that came through council.
That's happened. So now this is the number 12 for all of these functions that we have. Now, is this, when we say there may be a 13, is that going into phase 2, or is this still closing down phase 1?
Amendment 13. Amendment 13, if there is one, would focus on functionality for the personnel department, which would probably be more of a phase 2.
Basically, phase 1 is completed, except for a little cleanup work, getting rid of reports that come off the legacy system, off the mainframe, and figuring out whether they still need to be printed or just cleaning up some things. So basically, all the work that's been going on for 2 or 3 years is really phase two
So you move-
work for the most
this-
part.
This would be, this number 12 is what the last funding for phase 1, and as you prepare for phase 2?
Yeah. I mean, some of it, that's one aspect of it, getting rid of all the remaining legacy processes.
And then what is the source? Is this general fund?
Yes.
Okay, has been allocated for this number 12?
Yes.
And then at what, if, in one of your reports, it reflects that it's transitioning to ITA. At what point will ITA take it over? Is that after phase 2 is complete?
Currently, the system is supported by ITA that is now managing HES and the Office of the Controller, and is expected that, so we currently do support the system, while HES focuses on building the new parts of the system.
Okay.
So-
Once phase 2 has been completed, then ITA will run the whole phase 1 and 2? Is that the game plan?
Together with the Controller, the Office of the Controller,
So at
yes.
some point in our history, this contractor will go away?
We hope so, yes. Yes, that is the plan.
The plan. Do
Well-
you have an idea of when that might be?
We had, this is Randy Levin, General Manager of ITA. Originally, we had envisioned it would be the end of this fiscal year. However, due to the fact that there have been a lot of resource changes on the project and on the system, we need to make sure that we've got the right skill sets that can actually support the system. And that is the biggest issue right now. So as we see what progresses this year with retirements and, so forth, plus whatever the workload is for next year, we'll be able to be in a better place, later on this fiscal year to determine whether or not we're going to need HES services in the next fiscal year.
Is the cost, we're up to, what, 7.5 million? Is the cost going to jump dramatically, or are we getting close to the end, or?
Well, for example, in this fiscal year, we've already experienced unanticipated changes to the system as far as the work furloughs have gone. So, it's difficult in the changing environment to predict exactly what is going to come up, because that has already delayed the stuff we had planned for this year.
I mean, is there a ballpark? I mean, we're saying it will jump from 7.5, is it going to get to 10 or 15, or are we saying it's going to be small? I mean, do we have any idea?
Well, I mean, the contract has been fairly steady at $935,000
That's a good
for
state.
each year. And if the same amount of work is to be done, we could anticipate that level. If further development is cut off, then it would go down to a maintenance contract level.
When will we put our arms around this?
I don't think we're going to know till a little bit further into the fiscal year. As Beverly mentioned, a lot of the work that we had on the plate for this year has already been deferred due to all of the labor changes that have occurred related to payroll. So we need to take a look and see, does the other things still need to be done? If so, when can they be done? And which staff are we going to be, are we going to have available to actually, do this work? And do they have the right skill sets?
So will we have a better idea before next year's budget process?
Yes.
So we'll have some idea whether we're ending phase 2, whether we've accomplished everything. What would that be our expectation for?
What we can do is we can come back, within the quarter, or at the year, or the end of this quarter, and basically report out what work has been completed, together with the controller, what work was unanticipated, and what does that do to the remaining workload in terms of pushing it out next year, and are these projects and enhancements still needed?
How much money is left in whatever fund this 900,000 comes from?
Well, that starts on August 1st, so we've barely touched into that, because the 100,000 is already approved. That's actually what we would have touched into at this point.
But the fund, the 900,000 that you're now asking for, that's somewhere in your budget?
Yes.
Okay. Does this exhaust that allocation, or are there other funds in that fund that you can use at source? Or I'm just trying to get an idea, so that if you spend the 900 on this item, are you going to need more money, or does this leave more money in the fund?
In this fiscal year,
Yes.
we are not going to need additional monies.
Is there additional money other than the 900,000 in your budget?
Well, we have the 100,000 that we
Yeah, I understand
had
that.
transferred in from FMS, but aside from that, there's no additional money.
So you're exhausting this account with the 100,000 and this 900,000?
Yes,
Thank you.
yes.
Mr. Chairman, Pete Echeverria from the City Attorney's Office. I just want to make one clarification. I've been informed that the amount appropriated for this amendment is still the same, the 935, but that it actually may bring the contract only up to 6.67 million rather than the 7.5. And I've advised the CAO and ITA that we would make that correction in the amendment when we actually write it up. In other words, we're still adding 935,000, but I believe the base that we're adding it to is lower than the 6.6 million that they
So
thought.
basically, you're rechecking the numbers to make sure
The
it's
total-
accurate at...
Correct. The total is approximately 6.7 million rather than 7.5.
Okay. All
Just a
right.
clarification.
Does that mean that there's overage somewhere, or does that mean that we give less?
No, it means that there was just a mathematical error.
Mathematical.
That's all.
Okay, thank you.
We'll
So
correct that.
we're not getting lucky and finding $1 million.
I wish
finally.
we were. I know where we could spend it.
There's no shortage of wanting to spend money. Okay, what other committee is this going to?
It was waived from Budget and Finance, so I believe it will go to full council.
Okay.
You must have got us in a weak moment.
And I was going to say, if that's okay with the chairman, it's okay with me.
Actually, this is the only committee this has been referred to, is ITGS.
Okay.
We'll have that by the time it comes to council, Pete. and then-
The clarification on the number? Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay. Seeing no more questions from the committee, we'll now go to public comment on item number 5 of the regular agenda. Is anybody here to make public comment on item number 5? I do not have any public comment cards before me on item number 5, nor do I see anyone coming forward. So with that, public comment on item number 5 will now be closed. And with that, the committee approves the CAO report. Thank you. And also with anticipation of that figure correction, and then also the report from this moment forward will reflect, this is amendment number 12, and where it refers to amendment number 11, it will now be referred to as amendment number 12. Now we go to item number 6.
Item number 6, CAO report relative to using Proposition F Fire Facilities General Obligation Bond Funds to replace Fire Station 39 located at 14415 Sylvan Street in Van Nuys. On July 27, 2009, the Public Safety Committee approved the recommendations as contained in the CAO report.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Ramon Soto with the CAO's office, and to my right is Chief Pat Butler with the Fire Department. To my left is Chief Jose Cornabold, also with the Fire Department. Proposition F was approved by the voters in November of 2000. It provided for $378.5 million for the renovation, replacement, and construction of 20 fire facilities, and $154.1 million for the renovation, replacement, and construction of 8 animal shelters. As a part of the adoption of Prop F, the mayor and council adopted a governance structure, and as a part of that governance structure, an administrative oversight committee consisting of the CAO, CLA, mayor's office, city engineer, fire chief, and general manager of animal services was created to oversee the program at an executive level. That committee meets monthly and provides various actions and oversight related to Proposition F. Regarding the fire facilities bond program specifically, to date, 17 of 20 originally authorized projects have been completed, and 7 of the 8 animal facilities projects have also been completed. The program has been fairly successful, and we've identified a total of 2 additional new projects, one of which was already adopted by the mayor and council in April of this year to replace Fire Station 7 in Arleta. At this point, about $41 million in a combination of savings and interests earnings are projected in the fire bond program. And the Administrative Oversight Committee in June asked the fire department to oversee its various needs for facilities throughout the city and to provide a prioritized list of projects, of stations that needed to be replaced. The fire department reported back to the oversight committee with its top list of 4 stations. That's not to say that there are not other needs in the city. There are. But from the fire department's perspective, there are a top 4. The top 4 consist of Fire Station 39 in Van Nuys. That's the first choice. Fire Station 11 in Westlake would be priority 2. Fire Station 76 in Cahuenga Pass would be priority 3. And Fire Station 37 in West would be priority 4. And in July of this year, the Administrative Oversight Committee considered the fire department's report to replace its top choice, Fire Station 39 in Van Nuys. The cost of Fire Station 39 is about $37.1 million. We've identified about $41 million in projected savings, consisting of project savings as well as interest income. So that would leave like a balance of approximately $4 million. The criteria used by the fire department in developing its prioritized lists includes the age and condition of facilities, as well as factors such as response times, workload, projected population growth, land use, and size of facilities. Regarding Fire Station 39 itself, that station is 70 years old and is the oldest station in the city. It has the most emergency incidents in the San Fernando Valley, which is to say it has the busiest rescue ambulance and engine and paramedic assessment light force truck as well. The station is also too small to accommodate existing resources and has to park some of the apparatus outside and does not have adequate parking for firefighters. Looking forward, and if this project is adopted by the council, at that point, the fire department would begin to look for appropriate sites. First and foremost, and the criteria is what is the operational optimum for the fire department. The fire department operations are staggered into 3 main divisions in the city, and there's a north division, which is the San Fernando Valley, a central division, and a southern division. Within each division, there are 5 battalions, and within each battalion, there are a number of fire stations. I believe there are about 5 roughly per fire station. And each fire station operates within what they call a first in-district model. So it's a geographical model, and the fire department will strive to locate any new station within the most optimal area within the first in-district. And so, sorry for the lengthy presentation, but that would conclude at this point, and we're available for questions.
Okay. So, Fire Station 39 in Van Nuys, you will commence, should we approve this recommendation, you will then commence looking for sites.
That's correct.
Correct. Now, you mentioned Fire Station number 7 in Arleta.
Fire Station 7 Arleta is a new project, which was authorized by the mayor and council in April of this year. And so we're currently looking for land at this point.
Okay. All right. So this is, Fire Station 7 is an example of the next step of Fire Station 39 process.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. And you mentioned the discussions of reaffirming the department's priorities. In those discussions, is there any relevancy to the community of what we usually know as universal? Is there a proposed fire station there or some changes going on over there that might have impacted the conversation regarding these priorities?
Ultimately, it did not affect this particular discussion. There is a potential development called NBCU in the Universal City area. It may result in a new fire station, but at this point, it's way too early to come to determination that funds for a new fire station should be set aside, because it could be years away from coming to fruition. And it's especially not appropriate to consider Prop F funds for that purpose, because Prop F funds are available now, and better to utilize those funds for existing needs, than to hold on to funds which may not be spent for a number of years.
Is Prop F the only way that we can conceive of to actually get new fire stations?
No,
Or are there
no.
other mechanisms that could take place?
Well, Prop F, when it was approved in 2000, was the first very large-scale attempt to replace a large number of fire facilities. Over the years, a number of stations would have been built using different mechanisms. If the city would have paid for them, they could have utilized cash. Looking forward at ways that we could maybe fund additional fire stations is doing a new bond issue. If you're only looking at single stations, could you use MICLA? Yes, you could use MICLA.
Have we ever had a development actually build a fire
Yes.
station and then give us the keys?
Yes, in recent years, Fire Station 67 in Playa Vista was built by the developer. Fire Station 28 in Porter Ranch was built by the developer. There is a current proposal in the North San Fernando Valley at a development called the Cascades,
And Silmar?
which is where the developer is proposing to build a fire station for the city as well.
So that is a legal mechanism, obviously not simple, but a legal avenue that could take place, obviously, if both parties, the developer and the city, were to agree on that. Correct?
That's correct, and that could also be the case at NBCU as well.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any questions?
I just wanted to know, do we know what the status is of the two items that went to Personnel Committee on the personnel staff for the two bonds?
Yes, as we clarified with the clerk, city clerk, as to what their understanding of the actions were, and what they indicated to us were that the Personnel Committee concurred with the Public Safety Committee recommendations, and so the files were sent back to the Public Safety Committee clerk for future consideration before the City Council. We had issues, as you recall, in our discussions there, and we were advised that we should have those discussions with the concerned members of the Personnel Committee on an offline basis, and that's our intent to do.
Okay. 'Cause so it's not on its way to council? 'Cause I was just-
No, we spoke to the clerk yesterday and asked them to hold off on sending those to the council so that we can have appropriate discussions with the members of the Personnel Committee.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So Fire Station 39 is 70 years old. It mentions that it's the oldest fire station in the city. So is that your practice to recommend when something gets about 70 years old that we replace it?
No, absolutely not. I think the fire department is here with me, and I'm sure that they'll say it's based on their need. I mean, if you, I think you have an office across the street from that station, so you know what that's like. It's a very small station. The older stations in the city tend to be built on sites as small as like 1/10 of an acre. So they're very, very close quartered, no room for growth, especially this particular station because of how it's sited. The standard that we're using now, a modern standard, if you will, for fire stations, if they're standard stations, is 1 acre. So they're substantially bigger. They have room for growth. As the city grows, we'll be able to use park additional resources there and assign additional resources there, as well as provide for staging areas for large emergency events such as brush fires, et cetera.
All right. Yeah, well, I don't agree that when something gets about 70 years old, it needs to be replaced. I hope to be as in good standing when I'm about 70. But I'm not a building. Okay, thank you for that report. Is there anybody here to speak on item number 6? Item number 6 is now open for public comment. I do not see any public comment cards filled out and forwarded on item number 6. Seeing and hearing no one come forward on public comment on item number 6, we'll close public comment, and with that, the committee will approve the CAO report. Okay, thank you. We'll now go to the special agenda.
Special agenda item number 1, continued from August 4th, 2009 and July 21st, 2009. CEO report relative to a proposed contract with Computer Science Corporation, Inc. for the replacement of the city's email system and office applications. This item has also been referred to the Budget and Finance Committee.
Okay, staff, please come forward. We have a presentation from the staff, and then we'll go ahead, Councilmember Parks here from public comment. Looks as though we have about 8 or 9 public comment cards, and then we'll go to questions. Okay, go ahead.
I'm Jacob Webster with the Office of the City Administrative Officer. Before you is our report on ITA's proposal to enter into a contract with Computer Science Corporation, or CSC, to replace the city's email system and office applications with Google's email system and office applications. In our report, we discussed at some length the operational and security cost and funding issues regarding this proposal. And sort of our assessment was that, as with any significant change in the city, there are risks involved with significant change of this nature. But based on our analysis, we also believe that, on the whole, the rewards, the benefits of making this change outweigh those risks, and we did recommend going forward with the contract to change the city's system. I don't know how much detail you want me to go into. Obviously, there's a lot of information I can...
Well, can you please describe for this committee, from your perspective, from the CAO's perspective, what the basic nature of the current system is that we're contemplating replacing, and what the system, the relevancy or the description of the system that would replace that, based on your recommendation?
Okay. The main central system that we're going to be leaving altogether would be the GroupWise email system. This proposal would result in no longer using GroupWise for email, but instead using Google's email system. So that would be the main change. Google's system comes along with Office applications for word processing, spreadsheets, and presentation. And while there's no immediate need to replace Microsoft Office, the idea is that there would be additional savings if the city could begin to transition away from Microsoft Office applications towards the applications that are included in the Google package already. The Google's email system offers, some advantages over our current system. There is enhanced collaboration ability. There's more storage space. There enhanced remote access. The Office applications we feel are less robust than the current system that we have. And switching to a new system, there could be some compatibility issues if some people are using Google system and other people are using Microsoft system. The two like Office applications don't necessarily, they're not completely compatible. If you send a document from one to the other, there may be formatting changes, that kind of thing, losses. But certain people in the city would need to retain Microsoft Office's applications because it offers certain tools that Google's don't offer yet at this time, most significantly database programs. Microsoft Access is widely used in the city for database. That is not a capacity that Google system has. Probably another significant element is we would be essentially moving, currently these applications and the city's documents are stored on city facilities, maintained by city staff, on city infrastructure. The plan with Google is to move these applications into Google's essentially infrastructure, remote from the city, referred to as the cloud. And there's sort of a sense that the control over those documents then would shift from the city to Google. And so operationally, those are probably the main issues that we identified in the report. There's also significant security issues and things like that.
Now, is there an industry terminology that would describe the current system that we have and the Google system?
The Google system would be, I guess, cloud computing, and the current hosted. What do we call it?
Software as a service.
That's the Google system, software as a service, or moving on to the cloud. And currently, we have a hosted system.
Okay, so hosted is what we currently have. Comparably, the Google system is called a cloud system.
Correct.
Now, what exactly does someone mean when they say cloud, and what does somebody mean when they say hosted?
Well, I can tell you what I've come to understand it to be in the last couple of months, but maybe it'd be better if I could give you the more technical.
No, it doesn't matter to me who answers the question, but I mean, it's like those two terms, if you look in an encyclopedia or you look at a dictionary 20 years ago, neither one of them were probably in any one of those references. But today, those are definitions in certain circles that are used and people understand what they mean.
Right.
So who would like to explain what each one of those basically, the basic description of each one of those means?
I actually would like to invite up Matt Glosback, who's Director of Product Development for Google Enterprise.
Oh, hold on, Matt.
Am I allowed to do that?
Yes, sure. But first, I want to know from somebody who doesn't have an interest in
I'll let Kevin answer it.
what decision this committee makes to answer that question.
I'm Kevin Crawford from ITA. An internally hosted system is one that staff from the organization owns both the hardware and the licensing of the product and maintains that software and hardware through the life cycle of the product. A SaaS product is when we buy a subscription to utilize a product at another facility not owned by the agency buying the subscription.
Okay. And so you just described which system? Or did you just describe both?
I did both. Sorry. The first, the
It
internally
sounded
hosted.
very similar.
The difference is that a software as a service system or cloud-based system is residing and maintained
Okay.
outside of the organization that's buying the subscription.
Okay. And so when you say outside, that means that it's not in the user's building or in the user's rented or owned space. It is at the third party that they're contracting with. It is with them, wherever that is.
Yes, and on their hardware.
Okay, and on their hardware. So one thing that has become a big issue, especially with all of the capabilities and the advancements of computing and information transfer and storage, et cetera, has been storage, right?
That's correct. That's
And
correct.
storage in and of itself has a lot of issues that somebody who is a user is interested in, which is basically whether or not that storage is secured, both physically and also when it comes to access or non-access to people that we don't want to have that access to that information, correct?
That's correct.
And also when it comes to energy consumption, responsibilities, personnel to maintain it, watch over it, make sure it's secure, et cetera. Those are all issues as well?
That's correct.
Those are all issues when you go to this model. But they are mitigated by all of the security that the outside company provides.
Now, when you say the outside company provides, obviously if those are concerns or issues that we want to make sure that they're addressed satisfactorily, then we need to make sure that contractually they're obligated to satisfy those concerns, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Now, when we maintain our own systems, like our current system, then all of those burdens aren't necessarily a contractual obligation to someone else. Those are burdens that we have to figure out how to maintain, how to provide the resources for them, and make sure that we're consistent with our needs, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Any questions on that note? Okay. Okay. So does that conclude your brief presentation, or?
I'm available to answer questions. I can go on and
We
on and on.
have, we have some, I have 20, 30 questions that I may or may not ask. So there's all kinds of things rolling around in my head. Yes, Randy?
I had some comments that I had wanted to make. May I make them?
Sure.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for taking the time to listen and consider our recommendation today for replacing the city's old email and office products with an innovative new solution. We are recommending that the city implement Google's solution, which includes email, calendaring, instant messaging, video, archiving, e-discovery, virus protection, documents, presentations, spreadsheets, and extended storage. We are also recommending that Computer Science Corporation, which is known as CSC, be selected to be our implementation partner for this project. The city of LA is the second largest city in the nation and deserves a state-of-the-art technology solution that will drive productivity, efficiency, and will enable departments to move forward and communicate in a way that they have been unable to do so until now. The ability to get whatever information the city needs, when they need it, on whatever device they need it on, and to collaborate on all sorts of documents will fundamentally change the way the city works and enhance productivity greatly. In a fiscal crisis, it is difficult to find technology solutions that will save money without requiring a significant capital outlay to achieve those objectives. The proposed solution will achieve both objectives, saving money while avoiding a costly upfront capital outlay. While the CAO has done a thorough analysis and provided a very direct cost-to-budget comparison, there are additional benefits above and beyond what has been outlined in their report. Prior to the release of the RFP, we identified savings in our initial projections ranging from $8 to $30 million. This proposal gives us much more functionality than what we have today, in addition to providing rebates based on other California jurisdictions' usage of our contract for amounts above 100,000 users. To date, we have 600,000 potential local and state additional users, which could rebate us up to $1.2 million. This type of rebate provision is virtually unheard of in technology contracts. Just like there is misinformation in the media about the city, there is also misinformation in the media about this solution and CSC Google's proposal. Therefore, I'd like to clear up a few misconceptions. Number one, we own the data, not Google. Number two, their security is better than ours. Number three, Microsoft Office will remain on all desktop and PCs that have it. Future purchases will be evaluated for necessity. Number four, this is not the consumer individual Gmail project that you use at home. This is for corporate and government customers. Number five, Twitter is not a Google application. Again, the version of Google applications that we are using is for corporate and government customers. Number six, cloud computing is safe. Cloud computing is a newer technology, although corporate world has been using it for a few years. Number seven, Google's solution allows you to work anywhere. There is an internet connection as well as offline connectivity. And number eight, we will be getting archiving, e-discovery, and disaster recovery, which we do not have today. My department staffing has been mentioned as a potential issue. Currently, to manage and operate our group-wise solution, we have 60-plus servers, 16 staff members, and numerous ancillary products required to manage the entire current email infrastructure. With major staff decreases that IT has experienced over the past 12-plus months, our ability to service this entire system is waning. Our staff that we have dedicated to this effort needs to be redeployed to shore up other support areas. As I have stated in council previously, we will have lost 102 positions, 50% which were filled, and could have many as another 53 positions eliminated. The email implementation will occur from contract execution through June 2010. LAPD will be implemented last, while we work with Google, CSC, and the California Department of Justice on security concerns. The California Department of Justice has given preliminary approval of the approach and will be part of this implementation. This is very positive, and we look forward to their participation. We believe the selection of Google as our email/office solution provider and CSC as our implementation partner will ensure a smooth implementation as well as position the city to move forward into the future. And this is my final comment, like my final answer. Like any major change initiative, there is fear of the unknown and a desire to stay with the status quo. Over the past several months, we believe that the detailed discussions and vetting that has taken place, weeks, from staff with ITA, CAO, CLA, city attorney, and police, CSC and Google have addressed, the many concerns that were expressed regarding security, privacy, data ownership, etc. And we are here today to answer any additional questions you may have. Thank you for this time.
Okay. CLA, any comments at this time? As I mentioned, we have a bunch of questions, but anything you want to add at this time?
ITA.
I'm sorry, ITA.
Hello.
Anything you want to add?
I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I guess the comment we would provide is that we support the CAO recommendation to approve the contract.
Okay. All right. We have a bunch of public comment cards. We'll bring you all back up when we have more questions. But at this time, I want to give public an opportunity to come forward and speak to the record. Shaheen Cohen, Derek Lin, Tom Anderson, you each have a couple minutes to make a few comments. Okay, 1 second. You can stay there. Anybody from PD, come on forward, please. We want to hear your comments on your evaluation of this, what we're contemplating here.
Tim Riley, the CIO for LAPD. We prepared some concerns of which Randy Levin has certainly addressed to the committee. Obviously, security is our first and foremost concern because someone else will have the data. And we have discussed with ITA, with the contractor, and with Google our concerns that about the security, and they've agreed to address those, and we would not move forward. I think in the plan, ITA will move the city portion first, and LAPD would be after if all of those security concerns are met. We also have some ancillary applications, including our electronic subpoena program that would have to be addressed. That would be a separate program that would have to be written and implemented. Currently, we are anticipating delivering about 400,000 subpoenas per year electronically through our email system. We have that in place now, and it's working very successfully with our current group-wise, so that would have to be implemented. And then, of course, the DOJ piece where because someone else has access to that information, they would either have to submit to a DOJ background check, or there would have to be some other technology implemented that would prevent them from having access to our information. That could include encryption, it could include some other forms of it, and so we obviously have those concerns as well. What am I forgetting here, Jeff? On the application side, at this point, LAPD has a contract with Microsoft for Microsoft Office for our users, so the plan was we would stay in place with that. And again, that would open up other concerns should we be required to move to the Google applications, because again, there's personnel information that's stored on those. So we would maintain all of the, all the records and all the information internally at LAPD for that. We'd also control the access to our email. So again, as Randy Levin pointed out, we wouldn't have a direct through the outside internet to that information. It would actually have to come through an LAPD server to access the Google information. So that would be another control point for us. And I think that covers our concerns that we brought up. But again, the security of the data is probably our primary concern. In fact,
now you mentioned you currently have licenses with Microsoft products.
Yes, sir.
And those licenses are through when?
We have an enterprise agreement with Microsoft that covers approximately about 8,500 LAPD terminals or PCs, where we have access to all of Microsoft Office, and all that information is maintained internally within LAPD on our servers.
Mm-hmm. And those contracts are through what date?
It's an enterprise agreement. It's a 5-year agreement. We're in year 3 of that 5-year agreement, and then once that is completed, then we have a renewal fee. Then the enterprise agreement is completed and paid for, and then there's an annual fee just to maintain that. What that allows you to do, number one, is have all the licenses, but also it provides any upgrades to the Microsoft products. We would get that information included in our enterprise agreement. So if there's a new Office release that comes out, there's extra support and some other things that are included in that.
So when it comes to Department of Justice, what level of government are you referring to?
This is the California Department of Justice, and this is any information that's derived from the California law enforcement telecommunications systems, DMV, criminal history, a myriad of systems that they have. Any information that's derived from that someone outside of the police department would have access to would require a background check.
Okay. Pete, you came forward. Is there anything you wanted to add?
On the Pete Echeverria from the City Attorney's Office, and we have shared these concerns with ITA as well. We want to share them with your committee so that you're aware and we make a record of the concerns that we have and whether or not they're ultimately addressed. It's been represented to us that they would be, but these are ongoing concerns that we have. If they're not satisfactorily addressed, then we'd be in the same position as LAPD with respect to the security of criminal history information that our criminal branch uses. And the same type of information that we share and that we obtain from those agencies. In addition to that, we have concerns about the security of other emails and other documents that pertain to our own investigations and our own attorney-client communications that we would have. So those security concerns are very much the same as LAPD and perhaps a little bit broader. On the operational side, we too use the Microsoft Office, and in fact we use WordPerfect. We have some licenses for that as well because we have a need for it. Not only in working with other city departments and the preparation of contracts, leases, other documents, but also working with outside counsel and private parties on a number of transactional work and litigation as well. Beyond that, we are required to utilize either Word or WordPerfect by the court rules to file pleadings electronically in some of the courtrooms, the federal court in particular, and some of the state courts as well. So we have an ongoing need. That need will continue regardless of how it's addressed. So to the extent that there's a proposal to utilize an alternative software, we already have identified that as one that won't meet all of our needs, and predominantly we would need to continue to use Word or WordPerfect.
And we,
And
is
spreadsheet.
the
Our
city
office.
attorney's office?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any questions?
Let me just ask both of you that, and this is the question that I think is paramount as we move forward, is that at what point will you know if it works? Or are you saying you won't know until it's finished?
Well, I feel fairly safe in saying that the applications, our needs for the applications that are Microsoft Office and WordPerfect will continue to exist. As far as the security, it depends on what the Department of Justice would be willing to accept. I know that there's a commitment to work.
My concern is, when will we know that? Because as we asked in one of our meetings, was that do we wait and they watch everything we do and then they walk away and say it didn't need it and we're down the path? Do we get a date certain that because of the way the system is developed or programs are written that they can rest assured it's done at a certain point before implementation? What is that date?
Well, we have not been involved in discussions with the DOJ directly, but I can understand that their position would be one of chicken or egg. I mean, they'll approve it once they see what we have in place and what security measures have been taken.
Can I comment on that? This is Randy again. You know, we've been working with the California Department of Justice, and they have approved the version of the security that we want to implement. They want to be part of this project to ensure that the security is adequate and make sure that other jurisdictions within the state of California are going to be able to implement the same kind of technology. So they have a very vested interest in making this work, and they have been, I don't know how many conference calls we've had, but they have had the intimate details of how it is that we want to implement this. And Google, who is here, can also comment on this, but they have also been on the phone with them sharing their security with the DOJ as well.
Let me just tell you, my concern is, I don't have a sense that they've come to the table as strongly as I would like to see, because what it appears is they're going to watch us. They've given some, basically some advice, and they're saying that if it works, fine. But I'm concerned that at the end of the day, are they going to be there, when you need them? I mean, the last thing we need is to take them to a gunfight and they disappear at the time of the gunfight. I mean, that's a major concern I have as to and if we can't prove it to them by the design of the system, then waiting until it's all implemented is a grave concern, because if we hear what Pete says about his technology, that appears that needs to be moving or in place even if we go in this direction. We hear the police department saying we'll wait and see because you got to invent something technology-wise. then all those savings we're talking about in the front end may not be there.
I don't think it's an accurate to say that we have to invent something.
Well,
I think it's,
what did you say? Maybe I misinterpreted. You said that we'd have to do something, either we couldn't be, you could not be directly involved in the system, you'd have to create something, is that the word you used?
I don't recall exactly what I said, but I can tell you that we have to have a solution in place, and that solution has to be reviewed by Department of Justice. We've talked conceptually with them about what is planned. There's a possibility of encryption, although it hasn't, the actual solution for us has not been developed yet. There's a concept on the table, and that needs to be done, and DOJ has given tantamount to an agreement conceptually, but until we show them what it is and how it works, then I don't think we're going to get their approval. But I think there is a real willingness to work with us. They're very encouraged by this. It's something that they are looking at themselves. So I think I'm highly encouraged by that. The other thing is the vendor has definitely displayed a willingness to support whatever it is. And it may be something as simple as they need to have our data segregated from the rest of the Google information that comes into their servers, and then the people that have access to it have to be submitted to a fingerprint DOJ background check, which would satisfy DOJ. So there's a number of ways to do this. It's just we don't have the solution in front of you. And I think for us, what we'd like to see is a concept, and then a proof of concept, and then a pilot project that we could then show DOJ, here's how it works.
So you don't need to invent something, you just need a solution that hasn't been created yet.
The parts of the puzzle are there. It's just putting it all together, sir.
All right. Okay, but let me just say this, that's what concerns me.
Yes.
If we're talking about $7 to $10 million, or whatever the cost is, that decision seems to me needs to be done very early in the discussion as we move down the line versus let me see what you develop.
Yes, sir.
That's my concern.
And if I may, I just have one additional item that I neglected and I'd like to have on the record, is that we have a very large dependency on the BlackBerry, which replicates our email to the BlackBerry device. All the command staff at LAPD plus selective employees have the BlackBerry. Up until very recently, within the last week or two, Google did not have a solution for that. We are told that there is now a solution. We have yet to see that. So that would be another concern, is that we would need to ensure that we could replicate our Google email onto our BlackBerry server. I think you would probably have the same concerns.
Again, we have a bunch of questions, and on that note as well, Randy, so we'll hear from you in a few minutes, okay? Okay. The people who filled out public comment cards, who wants to go first? Go ahead. Your name for the record?
My name is Shaheen Kohan. I'm a CEO of Focal Technology Solutions, Inc. We have 10 years of experience in technology. We have over 450 active companies that we work with in Los Angeles, primarily in the fashion industry. This proposal is a rushed and experimental proposal. Basically, on the cost issue, number one, the city basically is required to spend an additional $2 million over their existing system. The $269,000 savings that it's talked about can only be achieved if there's a full migration. LAPD already told you they're not switching anytime soon, so 17,000 users will not be going to this new system. Okay? In terms of security and privacy, as the LAPD person already mentioned, outsourcing of storage of sensitive classified city documents and emails to a search company with no enterprise experience whatsoever. I want to remind you that there's no corporate government, there's no corporations in Fortune 500 that use this system because it doesn't exist. Raises serious security and privacy concerns. There's been a number of security breaches at Google. Some are well publicized. The other ones are probably not because of the concept of the sort of a run on the bank. They don't want people to know about these things, and these things are not, very well publicized, but it is in the IT circles. We hear about them. In this proposal, there's a 5-day proposed testing time. Okay, I don't know how they're going to test for 5 days to move 30,000 people from one system to another. I've never heard of that. It's got to be magic. In conclusion, this is an experimental proposal that Google is proposing to do here. They've never done an enterprise project. The Washington, D.C. only has had a 5% migration, which is what ITA keeps referring to in their proposal. And there's serious security and privacy concerns that need to be dealt with before this proposal is put in. And I ask you not to approve this proposal.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Tom Anderson. I am the president of CSC, responsible for delivering this solution. For those of you who don't know, CSC is a large global enterprise in 92 countries. We're 100,000 people delivering exactly these kinds of capabilities to many kinds of clients around the world. We are a world-class company, and we have a reputation that I'm here, in fact, to defend. We have experience in the public sector. We provide thousands of email systems to clients today, not only in public sector, but also in commercial practice. We have relationships with many corporations like Google and some of the competing companies that they compete against. My role, I'm responsible for delivering this solution, period. And that's one of the reasons I want to sit here in front of you today to let you know that it is my responsibility to deliver this system just like I do every other contract that I manage today. And there are a significant number of those. So you have my word on that. This system will be delivered on price and on schedule as proposed. We do have a cloud computing practice. It's worth noting that the person who leads that practice today is Brian Dwarf, who's recently joined us from Microsoft to run that cloud computing practice. Software as a service, you heard Kevin talk about software as a service earlier. That's exactly what this kind of system is. We do that day in and day out at CSC. We have the capability. So the bottom line here is that I will ensure that this program is delivered as proposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Derek Lin, and thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. I have just, with all due respect to Mr. Cohen, I wanted to point out that Washington, D.C. is actively using Google Apps even as we speak. So these concerns, these security issues that we're facing, they are not exactly new. They are solved problems. Washington, D.C. has done it. We can do it as well. And Chief Parks, I worked as IT manager at the LAPD Credit Union for 6 years. The biggest part of my job was data security. It's extremely important to protect the identity of the undercover police officers, so identify with and understand the security issues that we're talking about here. Now, I come to you here today from SATA Systems, my employer. SATA Systems is a local company that is small in size, but large in terms of capabilities, and we'll be working on implementing this project. SATA Systems is a woman-owned IT firm that has 9 years of history. It's founded by immigrants who came into this country years ago with the determination to work hard and achieve that American dream. And I'm happy to say that dream is alive and well today, despite the current economy. We are handing out bonuses, we are giving out raises, and we're very proud to say that we employ 30 technical professionals right here in the city of Los Angeles. So how was it that this small minority-owned self-funded company was able to be successful in providing services to some of the largest enterprises and universities and government agencies and entities all around the world? And it's very simple. We recognize powerful technology when we see it. Google is that technology. We're very excited to be part of this project, to save millions of dollars, to save jobs, and give tools that are the best of its kind available anywhere, powered by Google. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Next, Matthew Glotzback, Andrew Forster, John Simpson, and Peter Repovich. There should be 4 chairs there. 4 chairs, 4 mics. Okay, go ahead.
Great, thank you. My name is Matthew Glotzbach. I'm with Google. And first of all, again, thank you for taking the time today to hear these discussions and the proposal. A few points that I want to touch on and reiterate. First is that it's not very often that you get more for less, and this is very much the proposal that is before the city, which is to actually get more capability at a lower price than what you're paying today. The $13.8 million in estimated savings by the CAO report is a conservative estimate, and although I don't think represented accurately to date, that includes that doesn't require you to move off of the Microsoft Office applications. That's just based on moving the email system, and not a set of savings with respect to Microsoft Office. As Randy said, there will be no migration off of the Office system, although that can be evaluated for future savings. Second point is, this is a security upgrade for the city. The city's systems are old, outdated. The systems and servers that you run on have numerous security patches, 71 security patches that were released last year, with the average time to fix of 60 days, which means the city's systems are vulnerable. There's no disaster recovery or redundancy for the city, and that's something that, especially given the geographic location as well as the geopolitical landscape, is important. Finally, I think there's some misinformation that Google doesn't have Fortune 500 enterprise experience. We have a 7-year-old enterprise division, of which I'm a part of. We have been serving the Fortune 500, the Global 1000, as well as state, local, and federal governments. We've partnered with CSC on a number of those opportunities. And the system that's proposed for the city is in place at a number of Fortune 500 companies. Google is obviously one of them, but Johnson & Johnson, the Johnson Diversity Group, Fairchild Semiconductor, Vallejo, et cetera. So we can give you a number of examples of large Fortune 500 Global 1000 companies where the system is live today. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, go ahead.
So next, good afternoon, Andrew Forrester with Aperio. So Aperio is a California-based company, and we are both a partner and a customer of Google. So I'd like to represent both of those environments today. From a customer standpoint, so our business is focused on helping large organizations and enterprise adopt on-demand technology or cloud technology. This is core to our business. We actually built our business from the ground up. We're 100% cloud-based. So we don't own a single server, and we never will. 80% of our infrastructure is either supported within the Google Apps platform or the Force.com platform, which are both cloud-based solutions. This environment for us allows us to have an agile, innovative, scalable, and secure environment that is really unmatched, and at the most important thing, at a predictable cost. So we have our cost from IT infrastructure standpoint is less than 2% since we started, and it will never go up because it's very predictable in terms of what we're going to be paying. From a customer standpoint, we are one of the largest implementation partners of Google Apps. So we've been part of most of Google's largest Gmail implementations. And across the board, it's simple to say they save a lot of money. That's sort of a given going into the situation. But what we've really seen most of the companies embrace and enjoy is the end-user productivity and the collaboration they get amongst the staff. So, from a perspective of this is an environment I live every day, I enjoy it as a customer. I enjoy seeing our customer success. I fully believe that the City of Los Angeles will make the right decision by moving to this technology, and it will benefit you in the years to come. Thank you.
How many years have you had this relationship with Google?
We've been in business since 2006.
Okay. And it's directly with Google or with a vendor that uses the Google product?
Google is one of our global partners. So we partner with Google and then partner with Salesforce.com, Amazon, and a couple other small companies.
Okay. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Councilman. I'm John Simpson with Consumer Watchdog. We've had a project for the last year sort of monitoring Google's activities and trying to induce them to respect people's privacy more than they do at the current time. I would like to suggest that the important thing in this contract is not the contract itself, but Appendix J, because that seems to be the only place that governs the agreement between Google and the data that is going to be maintained. That's the so-called terms of service operation. It's clear that they can modify the terms of service because the off-the-shelf one that they have available has been modified in this written document. Since this is what governs the ultimate control of the data that you're going to be putting over on their servers, I think there needs to be a much more explicit spelling out of the security guarantees that you're requiring. Right now, essentially what Google is saying is our motto is don't be evil, trust us. They need to explicitly spell out how the city's data is going to be protected. And indeed, the city's data, some of it, has to have a higher level of protection than Google's own data. So they need that kind of explicitity. Back to this notion of don't be evil, so trust us. Let me tell you, I don't. When we put out a press release sometime back in the fall that Google didn't like, their response was one of their senior executives in Washington tried to get our funding yanked. That's hardly a corporation that tries not to be evil. So I think this is a program that is rushed too far. Cloud computing offers something for the future, but only with adequate securities. And the contract that you need to focus on is the arrangement with the third party that's providing the servers on the cloud.
John, you described you're representing Consumer Watchdog?
Consumer Watchdog, that's correct. We're a consumer advocacy organization based in Santa Monica. We were formerly the Foundation for Taxpayer Consumer Rights. Our founder was responsible for writing Proposition 103, which reformed the insurance industry in the state.
They perfected the insurance industry?
I said reformed the insurance industry in the state.
I'm adding to that with a question mark. It perfected the insurance industry?
I think it helped put some necessarily regulations in place like the elected insurance commissioner. I think the insurance industry needs a lot of perfecting still.
So we've had some really good insurance commissioners elected in the state?
We have.
I thought one of them kind of left under a cloud.
I think one of them left under a cloud.
Yeah.
Different cloud.
Different kind of cloud. Who are your major funders?
We have a number of funders.
Give me some names.
The Rose Foundation was the one that funds the Google. Rose Foundation.
Rose Foundation?
Mm-hmm.
And another?
Nathan Cummings Foundation.
Are they your number one, number two funder?
They funded two of the projects that I personally am involved in.
So who's your number one funder these days?
We have a fair amount of money that is raised by contributions. I'm not someone who follows our own budget closely. You'd have to talk to our president.
But you're a watchdog organization. I don't mean to sound crass or harsh with you, but my point is, since I've been elected over 12 years, I happen to be very skeptical. Sorry about that. I'm very skeptical about organizations that call themselves consumer advocates or watchdog organizations, and I find it kind of awkward that I would ask you some simple questions like who your number one funder is, and then you're honest with me, you say, I don't follow that.
Well, I gave you the
watchdog organization, I thought it was your nature to be skeptical and to actually know some of the broad parameters of what's going on.
Sure, and I was giving you the funders for two specific projects that I'm personally involved in. One is our Stem Cell Oversight and Accountability Project. We've received $300,000 from the Nathan Cummings Foundation over the last 3 years for that. We've received $100,000 from the Rose Foundation for our Google Oversight and Accountability Project.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Tony. Peter Repovich, Los Angeles Police Protective League. We have a little bit of a concern as to this cloud configuration and going forward to try to fix the city's email system. We talked to both vendors, Microsoft and Google, and try to get a handle on what they were both thought was the right thing to do. We talked to the department about their concerns and come to the conclusion that the most important concern to us is security. Our membership, our department needs to make sure, and I think the city needs to make sure for their own security interests that the data is secure, number one. As far as who should be the vendor going into the future in this new cloud configuration, I don't think we have a dog in that fight. The only fight that we have is to make sure and ensure that the data is secure. As far as the use of a private cloud or a public cloud, which I suppose we understand now, servers housed in your department or servers that go, or lines that go through a public to another server that has other public data in it with you, where you share a server. I'm not sure. I'm not a technical person, so I can't answer that in any definitive way. But I think it's important that this body look at this and how they arrive at what they do very carefully and importantly, and to try to take into consideration what our department has said about its security concerns. Both vendors seem to be I found them to be very open and transparent with the league. We've met with them, and I think they're both good people. I think they're both very competitive in nature, and eventually this will be worked out. But I would say real important to go slow and make the right decision, and we don't want it to end up costing more in the long run, thinking we're going to save money by doing this now.
Mr. Repovich, so I can you can help me understand what some of the concerns are from your organization, which is made up of officers of the police department. How familiar do you feel you are with the concerns that the police department itself has brought up as far as security concerns?
Well, just by what I've been told. Again, I'm not a technical person, but I mean, if we have information going over the wire that has anything to do with...
What I mean is not in a technical fashion, but when you put your top 10 basic concerns that has struck the league as things that you want to know answers to, do they vary quite a bit from what you think the department's questions are, or they mirror pretty good what the department's concerns are when it comes to access of data, who's holding on to that data, can somebody get access to it, et cetera?
I think they pretty much mirror exactly the same. E-subpoenas, information regarding criminal investigations, HIPAA, privacy concerns, who would have access, what's the level of background that's been done on the employee, who will have the magic keys, if the magic keys is the way that they go do this. All of those things. I mean, we don't have a position on the applications. You know, people are talking about, well, this application is better than this, or we haven't even really been concerned about that.
As of right now, do you have any concerns, or is there anything that you've identified that needs to be added to the list of concerns that the department has been expressing so far, as far as you can tell?
Councilmember, I don't think there's anything new or I have something that they don't have.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. All right. Could we have the staff come up again?
Councilman?
Yeah.
I'm ready to provide my comments now.
Okay. Excellent. Okay.
Based on the comments that have been provided by...
Name for the record?
I'm sorry, June Gibson with the CLA. Based on the comments provided by City Attorney, the League, as well as LAPD, I wanted to share with you that we also had equivalent concerns. And it was for that reason that we had a series of meetings with ITA, LAPD, CAO, and the City Attorney. And more recently, we had a meeting with Google. Number one on our list of concerns is the issue of security. With our recent meeting with Google, we had a better explanation in terms of what encryption means, what super encryption means, and theoretically, we're confident that their level of security would meet our needs. However, our primary concern is implementation and how that's going to look and how quickly it's going to move. We're gratified by the fact that ITA has decided that the number of months that it's going to take for implementation is now going to be beyond 5 months, which was their original plan. My understanding is that implementation will extend through the end of the fiscal year. Initially, they had a pilot program of very short duration. They have now agreed that the pilot program will be for a much longer period of time. We're really not quite sure as to which departments would be included as part of that pilot program, but I think that that's one of the details that needs to be worked out. We also feel very strongly that there needs to be a close collaboration between the CAO, CLA, and ITA, along with the City Attorney and LAPD, to monitor implementation. We are concerned about the fact that, as Google has stated themselves, that Google Apps is not intended to replace Microsoft Office, that it instead is intended to augment that. The reason that is an issue of concern is because of the fact that there are certain departments that are what we consider to be power users relative to Microsoft Office with respect to Excel, and also LAPD's concern about the fact that they have 2,400 Access databases which cannot be converted in any way to Google because Google admits that it does not have database capabilities. So to the extent that we need to retain Microsoft Office in certain key departments, I think that that's really critical. The other issue is with respect to converting to Google Apps. I think that there is cost savings that can be identified with respect to certain departments and the users within those departments who would not necessarily be Microsoft Office power users. So I think, in the long run, there will be a savings associated with that, but I don't believe that the savings are immediate and certainly not probably within the next couple of years.
Thank you.
Let me ask you, June, with that last statement, where is the funding in the first couple of years if we're not going to realize it for a couple of years as to the current plan?
I think the CAO has identified certain funding. Well, let's put it this way: it's not going to be. We're not going to be. Well, we may end up having to go to the reserve fund for that purpose, because I think that the initial plan by ITA in terms of the cost savings was converting from Microsoft to Google Apps, and the estimate that with the conclusion of the Novell group-wise contract not having to be extended beyond December 31st, that no longer comes to pass. So I think that, the savings, pretty much disappears.
Just to,
That's a good answer about the reserve fund.
I know, sir.
just to provide some detail on what you just said.
And also, I want to hear from Randy after that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, the costs in the first year were estimated to be about $1.96 million. Initially, ITA had identified about 2.1 that could be used, so it would look like it would have been more than enough. But because of the extended implementation, about $400,000 in savings from eliminating group-wise on December 31st is no longer going to be available. Also, it should be noted that $1.5 million is a settlement money that the city has from a settlement with Microsoft from a class action suit. That money is, at this point, we have fulfilled the needs to receive those funds. Those are, at this point, unrestricted. So we're taking funds that, although they're not budgeted in 910, they could be used for other purposes.
Randy? And Randy, it's really important that you bring this committee up to speed on the estimated cost savings, because it's my understanding that when this RFP was received and vetted and the proposers were ranked, that cost savings seemed to sound very attractive with the Google proposal. But it's my understanding that those initial cost savings estimates are no longer what they are today as far as the estimates of today. Is that accurate?
I will comment on that, okay, for you. First of all, when the CAO report was done, yes, we were anticipating that it was basically going to be a wash for the first year based on the savings that we would get from implementing it with GroupWise. So yes, we do have a slightly negative deficit for this first year, but we're committed to trying to find the resources to do this, because we know that this is the right long-term solution for the city. And that we will be saving money doing this. Now, let me go into the benefits. And I alluded to this in my statement, but basically, when the CAO did their analysis, it was, in my opinion, a line-by-line type analysis, what was in, what was out, et cetera. There are other benefits that we haven't even taken into consideration here. We haven't taken into consideration the possibility that we could get these rebates of up to $1.2 million, and that's real dollars that no one has taken into consideration. Second point is the general fund impact. Since the majority of the funds for the implementation are coming from, an outside source, that doesn't have the same kind of impact to the general fund as it would if it was just coming directly out of the general fund. Third, we have productivity savings that if you ask any research group like Gartner Group who studies the IT industry, we predicted, and we still predict, that we'll have about $10 million in productivity savings. And if every project was never included productivity savings, then most IT projects actually would never even occur, because one of the big emphasis for technology is efficiency. And so that hasn't been taken into consideration. Another thing that hasn't been taken into consideration is viewing this as an apples to an apples proposal. We don't have disaster recovery today. It is not in our budget. But I can guarantee you the day that the email goes down and we don't recover it for 24 hours, everyone's going to be asking us, where's your disaster recovery? Why isn't it recovering within a day? And so when you look at comparing the entire set of functionality that we're going to be getting with the solution versus what we have today, we did cost that out. To get to where we would have to be with our group-wise solution, plus all those additional products and services we would need, that's about another $12 million. Not in our budget, again, but one more time, if these are important, features and functionality that we actually really do need. We don't have servers budgeted in our budget next year. We don't. And I can guarantee you that some of those 60-plus servers that run the environment will die next year. And guess what? We will have to go ask for funding that's not in our budget to replace those servers because we don't have technology refresh dollars to do that. So, I could keep going. But when you look at it on a pure line-by-line basis, yes, it looks like it's going to be a little more expensive next year. But quite frankly, none of this other stuff is being taken into consideration. And so when you look at that and we did our own ROI analysis, it can be anywhere from $6 million to $30 million. But it's how you view it and how you look at it.
So, Randy, one of the things that I took from what you just said is us as policymakers, we inadvertently have pushed your department to make a recommendation like this, because we have not fortified or have we identified resources for us to find other solutions for these ancillary things that we would need as time goes on.
That would be a true statement. You didn't hold a gun to our head, but, our budget has been...
No, but we inadvertently have
Yes.
forced you to have to look at things that we haven't promised to find funding for, or things that we haven't, we're being honest, we don't have money lying around, right, Budget Chairman? Any extra money lying around?
June has a lot of money, she just won't tell us where it is.
So basically what you've described is that our system, some people might say if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But my mom always told me don't say ain't, and now that I'm a policymaker and I speak publicly all the time, I try not to use that word, or I don't like to make policy on sound bites either. So is our system good for another umpteen years on the kind of budgeting that we seem to be providing for our systems?
No, it's not. And as we sit here today, we are 3 versions behind from GroupWise. We only tried to put in the budget one upgrade to get us, which was a technical upgrade. There's not much functionality we would get from it, just so that we can be more current in that respect. But no, we have a risk. We have a risk of, the hardware failing. We have a risk of being behind in the versions. We have all the limitations we've spoken about, and we also have a staffing risk because we have lost a number of our group-wise administrators. And we also feel that with this proposal, we'll be able to, the staff that we have left, because of how many headcount we've lost, we'll be able to redeploy them into some more value-added, types of roles to support other critical systems. So it's the combination of all of those things, plus all this additional functionality that we get, that we put forth this proposal.
You mentioned $1.2 million in rebates. What are you referring to?
You want to talk about that?
And how and when could or would that come about?
I'll let Kevin talk.
Can I make a statement on the funding for this year first? Sure. With the delay in the implementation, and our schedule was to start on the 1st of September, which obviously will not happen, with implementation planning and everything else that we have to go forward with, the implementation of this product is going to be delayed this year too. So the dollars of cost for this implementation this year are also going to be reduced. And it may be reduced depending on how slow we go in the next 9 months, that we could recover most or all of the dollars that Jacob identified.
Okay.
And then for
so the 1.2 million?
The 1.2 million is based on a 30,000 user sign-on to the Google system. We have made this contract available to all public agencies within the state of California. We have 20-plus agencies that have called us to inquire about the system and are interested in the system and waiting for a contract to be signed. We've gone back, talked with our partners on this, CSC and Google, and they have stated that, and we have written it into the contract, that if 100,000 users sign up for this contract, that we will get a $10 per person, up to 30,000, however many we sign up, rebate. So that would be 300,000 per year, starting with year 2, 3, 4, and 5, which would come to 1.2 million.
So that's kind of like an additional caveat. It's something we're not counting on, but it's something that there could be some semblance of those dollars in the future.
Right.
Correct?
That's correct.
Okay. The question of the CLA, what is your opinion of where we're at as far as we have a recommendation from the department that has been charged with these kinds of details? This is their bailiwick. This is their responsibility, ITA. And obviously the CAO and the CLA, your job is to look at recommendations from various departments and advise us and tell us, well, you know, the report or what they're letting you know, this looks good, this not so good, this is something that seems to make sense, but on the other hand, there's some questions that need to be answered before you as policymakers make a decision, et cetera. That's how I see your role. So I'm going to ask you a question. In all this analysis on this matter, this item that's before us, what's the CLA's opinion of where we're at with our current system? Is it something that we better figure out what we're going to do, stick with what we got, and then start investing in it some more, or stick with what we got and just see how long it lasts, and you think it will last a while if we get lucky, or we should make a decision and say, okay, let's move to something that sounds like it could provide better answers for the future, such as, you know, cloud computing.
I'm going to make the same statement that others have made, and that is I'm probably the least techie person in this room.
Mm-hmm.
And when we had the meeting with Google, that was precisely one of the questions I asked is, I hear that we have an antiquated system. I frankly don't know what that means. I know it works. I don't have any problems with it. Therefore, why should we move to your product? I think Randy has summarized very well in terms of the benefits that would be derived by our going to a new system. I don't really understand cloud computing other than for the fact that we no longer have control of the data in our servers. It is now going to be in a third party's servers.
And with responsibility of maintaining those in-house servers,
Correct. Correct. But there clearly are benefits that are going to be offered by this other product. Enhanced security, disaster recovery, better remote access. And also my understanding is that, you know, with the current product, we're going to have to upgrade. So taking all those factors into consideration and also the potential cost savings that we could be incurring in the future by moving away from Microsoft licenses to Google Apps licenses. In some of the cases, taking all of those factors into consideration, we think that, and that's why I indicated in the beginning, that our office is supporting the CAO's recommendation to approve the contract. However, I have to emphasize again, we do believe that it's important during implementation that the CAO and CLA work with ITA to ensure that business operations are not going to be negatively affected. So having a working group to be able to monitor that and to be able to report our findings periodically to, what's the name of that group?
Technical Oversight.
The Technical Oversight Committee, as well as to this council committee, I think is important to ensure that things run smoothly.
Okay. Now, according to what you've been able to look at, understand, interview folks, in-house vendors, et cetera, the amount of potential savings to the city and by and large general fund, which seems to be the most important pot of money the city has and the one that we're most concerned about. The potential for savings is a moving target. The ITA department hasn't said this is a firm figure, we guarantee it or what have you. They've admitted that it is somewhat of a moving target, but they've never moved off of the idea that there's no question that in the long run, going with their recommendation is going to save the city more money than staying with the system we have. According to the CLA's office, according to all of your work on this so far, do you see that there will be overall some savings, or is there perhaps a concern that we'll go backwards and not only will there be no savings, but there's a pretty decent chance that we could fall into the realm of ending up spending more money in the long run on this system than staying with the system that we have? Understanding that staying with the system we have doesn't mean we're not going to have to invest in that one.
Our analysis of the costs stems from the cost of the Microsoft Office licenses, and I don't think it's disputed that that cost is higher than the per-user cost for Google Apps. I think the issue will be to be able to accurately identify which of the city staff would be able to move from Microsoft Office to Google Apps. And given the fact that LAPD has Microsoft Office licenses that are valid for the next 3 years, and my understanding is with the Council Control Department, we have contracts that are good for the next 2 years. That gives us a window period for an appropriate time for transition. But as I stated earlier, in the long run, we do believe that there will be significant cost savings to the city, and it's one of the reasons why we're recommending that the contract be approved by council.
Okay. Randy, when it comes to the potential 30,000 users, according to my numbers, should we have full implementation across the board versus a subtraction of that 30,000, it sounds to me that just in the police department alone, there's 17,000 users. Using that as that fraction of less than half converting over, what would that do to our projections as far as moving forward and the potential for saving money, at least with those 13,000 users?
Well, first of all, the cost to run the existing environment for LAPD would basically remain the same, plus whatever the cost it would be to upgrade, and then if anything breaks. So, and I don't know what's in their budget for that, so I can't comment on that. Tim, you'd have to comment on that piece. I still think that we would be achieving great savings even if they didn't move on to the system, given all of the other things that I just had mentioned.
So going to 13,000 users that move over versus 30,000, you still are of the opinion that we wouldn't be going backwards, that we would see a net savings?
Yeah, I think we would see a net savings. By the way, it's 13,000 for them and 17,000 for the rest of the city. It's backwards.
Okay.
That's okay.
How many users are in the? Okay, I apologize. For some reason, we got
That's
those
okay.
numbers backwards. Okay, so over 50% seem to have, they don't have to have the litany of security concerns to the level. Obviously, security is a concern of everybody, but to the level that our law enforcement department has.
That's correct, and some members of city attorney.
Okay, all right.
Councilmember? Can I?
Yeah,
If I
go
can
ahead.
just identify some of the cost issues that the CEO brought up in our report. We agree that there are cost savings, estimated hard savings, hard dollar budgetary savings over 5 years of about $6.2 million. But in our assessment, the cost of Google during that same time period will be about $2 million more. So the general fund impact we'll have to find more money than we would if we stayed with GroupWise. The important mitigating factor is the issue that Randy was bringing up. Because of the capacity, the work that's required to maintain GroupWise, there are also soft savings as staff and servers can be used for other purposes. So you could consider that cost avoidance, you could consider it increased capacity. We don't consider that to be budgetary savings. It's soft savings, it's a different kind of thing. So in our assessment, we will be spending more over the next 5 years if we do go to the Google product.
I don't necessarily agree with that, because quite frankly,
Dollars are dollars, I mean, no matter what.
Well, no, but they have additional capacity, but we're not going, there people who are working on GroupWise, those people are not going to leave the city. We're still going to be paying those people. We have servers, but those servers are still going to be operated. So we're not going to have savings from not refreshing or from not keeping those servers running, for not buying the software. We're still going to be using those servers for other purposes. So the budget will not be impacted. The capacity will be increased sort of for no cost, but we're not actually going to be, it's not money that's sort of included in the budget.
Well, I wouldn't agree with that. I mean, if you asked Randy 2 years ago how many people she thought were going to be working within her department after this budget cycle, she would have been wrong, sorry. And she lost a lot of people. And what's to say that the budget chairman and his committee aren't going to have to cut some more people? And if we obviously have the ability to free up some responsibilities and shift them over in the process of that shift, they just might be bounced, and they don't even exist anymore. So that would be savings, right?
True. No, that's absolutely true. That could happen either way. But in terms of whether or not that's going to save the city additional funding.
But the thing is, the way it stands right now, the 16 positions that Randy was talking about that oversee our servers, the 16 positions you mentioned, Randy?
Correct.
So the thing is, if we move away from having to maintain those servers, then those 16 people, obviously, there's plenty of things to do within the ITA department. Rather than shifting them over, the chairman could say, you know what, we don't have to maintain servers anymore. That was the core responsibility of these 16 people. I'm going to take 10 of those people, and they're gone. And, okay, now, with the 6 people that are left, go find them something else to do. Because, Randy, you're pretty upset that we're gutting your department. So, I mean, that's a realistic savings. I don't think that it's fair to say that when you free up certain obligations and responsibilities and shift them over into a different way of doing business, and those 16 bodies that are salaried and retirement accounts and all those kinds of things that we have to provide for, that they can't be considered as potential savings and perhaps realistic savings over time.
In our report, we identified them as in a separate category because it's different from savings that are going to be realized in an immediate budget based on an immediate plan that's existing. We identified them as soft savings. We recognize that there's benefits to that, and in my statement, identified it as a mitigating factor for the fact that we're paying more. But that's the analysis of our report. It's different from a hard dollar general fund budgetary saving.
But also, you're the CAO, and you happen to be on the front end of the difficult job of the beginning of the budget talks on every cycle. Does your department ever have disagreements or vehement disagreements with departments when you talk about, oh, you need to cut X number of bodies? Do they ever push back and say, what, are you crazy? I can't do that.
Of course.
Okay, so obviously, your responsibilities are, you look at them in the best interest of the city, but at the same time, specific departments with their specialty, with their day-to-day responsibilities, they tend to disagree with you when it comes to personnel equivalents when it comes to actual positions. So all I'm saying is that I respect and appreciate that you do look at things differently than Randy would when it comes to the specific positions within our department. And so I have to put a little bit more weight, I choose to put a little bit more weight on when Randy tells me these 16 bodies are doing this responsibility within my department, and if we change the way we do business, those 16 bodies can be freed up to do other things. And then coming from a policy vantage point and sitting next to the chairman of the budget committee, like what we just did this past year, Randy, how many vacant positions did you lose, and how many vacant positions did you keep?
We kept no vacancies. We got rid of 102 positions.
So my point is,
were filled.
there could be 16 positions if you were so unlucky to have them vacant, because, say they said, look, I'm a server person, I just got a job offer from Cisco, goodbye, and all of a sudden there goes a position that's funded, but it's vacant, and the chairman of the budget committee here happens to be doing another go-around of sweeps, those vacancies could be lost, right? So therefore,
correct.
that would result in a savings to the city. I mean,
Right.
it doesn't make you happy, I'm not trying to say that's going to happen, but what I'm saying is, that would be a hard savings for the city, right?
That's correct.
Wouldn't that be a hard, accurate savings for the city?
That would be a hard saving for the city. The only, I guess, yes, that would be a hard saving for the city. Whether or not it would be the result of changing to Google, I'm not sure, but it would be a hard savings for the city. I mean, if it's budget crisis, we need to cut
Sure.
positions, then we're going to do that regardless of whether or not we switch from GroupWise to Google. That's-
Okay. Anything on that note, Randy?
Well, I just want to give you one statistic. You know, we had in 9 months, 553 minutes of downtime on the email system, you know, and I don't have what the year figure was, but you could extrapolate it to be maybe 600 minutes in a year, and the Google system was down 15 minutes in the whole year. So if you take an old email system that's not upgraded with no budget to upgrade servers and all of that stuff and lose staff that know how to maintain it, the only thing that you're going to see is an increase in the amount of downtime that we have for our email system. So when we're looking at, you know, headcount particularly, you know, that's what this whole discussion has been about. You know, we lose more staff, but we keep the existing system that already has a lot of downtime. We will just increase that.
Are you hinting at the idea, another aspect of what you just described is, are you hinting at the idea that perhaps downtime means lost productivity? Lost productivity might have something to do with inefficiencies with the city, and therefore
Absolutely.
it's a loss of money.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not on a ledger, but it's a loss of productivity. Loss of productivity is loss of money.
Yes, people have come to rely greatly on their email.
Okay. I thought it was going to be a lot more complicated than this, and it doesn't seem as complicated as I thought as far as making a decision. Mr. Parks, do you have any questions?
I think most of the questions have been answered, but one of the things I think before we come to budget and finance, the things that I would like to see, and I think the committee would like to see, is we need a formalized contract that is currently not there.
We are, yes, I agree with you. I just want to say we are very, very close. We are almost finished, so I hear you on that
We
point.
need a contract. We also need to clarify the real dollars so that we know exactly what those dollars are, whether you're expecting us to find money in a depleted reserve fund, or are you saying where these savings are coming from? Are they real dollars?
Okay.
Are they dollars that we can depend on later down the road? That's very, very important for us, so we can get a true idea. The other issue is, I think would be important, is this issue of a pilot, because I think it was of great concern, I believe, to the Budget and Finance Committee, particularly the statement that says if you go down a certain path to a certain point, you can't return. And we would not like to get to that point and find out it didn't go. So a pilot that is shaped and to where we understand and how many people, those issues. And then the fundamental issue is going to be for all of us is I don't think we can wait until we push the button and see the whole system run, and then LAPD and DOJ says we like it or not. We're going to have to nail down those points in advance of us making this kind of investment. And I think, and I don't recall at this point, whether all of these other law enforcement agencies such as General Services, Airport, Harbor, and all those other law enforcement agencies in the city are impacted the same as LAPD and the city attorney. So those have to be brought into the equation also if they're going to be a part of the system now or in the future. So those are things I think that are necessary. Then the final thing I'd ask, and I think there's probably about 25 questions that were written by the CLA's office. It would be important if we could get those responses in writing so that we can at least cut through the time and effort during the committee, that they'll have it in advance, and I think it captures, or should capture, most of their concerns. But again, those are the things I think we need so that we can have at least some sense of where we're going. But truly, the dollar figure, and I think the last thing I'll say is, we need to make a case that this is not a nice to have, that's a necessity, because we do not have money for nice to haves, and if you can put a Band-Aid on it and stretch it, is that realistic? If it's not realistic and it collapses, or whatever, we need to know that, because again, it may not be the ideal, but if you're talking about several $1 million that we don't have, we're going to do a lot of things that are not ideal.
Okay, we will get all of this to you.
Yes, and Councilmember Parks, I'm Ted Jordan from the City Attorney's Office. I am here to answer any questions that you may have about the contract.
Yeah, where are we at on the contract language?
We had a conference call yesterday with our risk manager and with the CSE folks to go over some final remaining issues in the area of risk management, limitation of liability, indemnification. We had sent some proposed language out. I don't know if we got anything back from them.
We did right before this meeting.
But the contract itself is virtually complete. There may be some minor cleanup of a non-substantive nature.
But I just think that as we go forward, we're not used to dealing with things without formalized contracts.
Absolutely.
People making commitments of what they're going to do and all that stuff, and I would not send it out of budget and finance until we're assured of these kinds of commitments.
And if the implementation plan is to not sort of go with everybody and it's to do some kind of pilot, then certainly my office would take a look at the contract to make sure that that works within the framework of the contract.
I think that this is a massive move, 30,000, whatever, and a lot of people are not technology inclined. And so the simpler we can make it and show that we're going through maybe some incremental step-by-steps, I think it reduces or eliminates a lot of anxiety that may not be necessary. But I just think we need these basic things: contracts, dollars, plan, pilot, how's it going to go, what can we expect, but real dollars. That's what we need.
And you mentioned other police agencies. I don't believe there's been any discussions with some of the other police departments here within the city. The city has multiple police agencies, not just LAPD. I'm told by Mr. Riley that the fire department arson squad does have the same issues in terms of the security. Certainly you have the Office of Public Safety. Some of the agencies, airport police, are not within the city. They're the general fund department. They're proprietary, and the proprietary departments aren't automatically included in this. They can do it if they want.
They can piggyback if they want.
But then they would have the same security issues.
The thing is, what I'm saying is those law enforcement that are expected to be in this system should be a part of it, just as we're talking about what is interoperability for radios. There should be no difference if they're going to be in the system.
Correct. And in terms of numbers, I mean, the vast majority is LAPD, but between my department, City Attorney's Office, and the other agencies, you pick up a few thousand here and there. I mean, it becomes a larger number.
Yeah. Well, I'm ready. Mr. Parks, I'm ready to go ahead and, okay. All right, so with that, we had public comment. Public comment is closed on this item, special item number 1. So I'll move that we approve the contract contingent upon the final resolution of the contract language before it is considered by the Budget and Finance Committee, and also instruct ITA to report back to ITGS in September with a comprehensive implementation plan, and also instruct ITA with the assistance of the CAO and the CLA and other departments as needed to conduct a thorough assessment of all departments' business functions and needs as they relate to Microsoft Office applications, and report back to this committee at the appropriate time. Okay? So with that, that's the action of this committee. No, what I said is you're not going to hear it until they have all that. The contractual language is budget, that goes to budget. But these things are instructions.
I was here and
Oh, hi. Yeah, tell them I said hi. Yes, yes. How long have you been with the department? You called me? Really? Well, it's his fault. Why didn't I call you back? None. General public comment to this committee is now closed. This committee is now adjourned.